on the stand.
She might have a lawsuit too.
Singer Dawn Richard testifies that Sean Diddy Combs hit Cassie Ventura with a skillet full of eggs.
You got to go back to the drugs and the alcohol, man. The drugs and the alcohol, man. And those things will make you do strange things.
What does it take to bring a courtroom to a standstill? Dawn Richard's explosive testimony about Cassie's alleged abuse at the hands of Diddy did just that, leaving the room in stunned silence. Brace yourself for the shocking revelations that expose a dark and disturbing side of a story the world thought it knew.
Diddy's ex wrapped up her testimony today after 4 grueling days on the stand. The defense hit her hard during cross-examination, asking her about a stint in rehab for PTSD, a rape allegation, and asking her to read explicit text messages from over the past 15 years.
Richard accused Combs of sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and a hostile work environment by being exposed to sex trafficking and sex acts. She also alleged that she was a victim of false imprisonment. In her suit, Richard stated she was seeking compensatory and punitive damages, as well as other costs for post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and emotional suffering, and financial losses she suffered as a result of Combs' alleged behavior. Combs has denied her allegations. His lawyer told E! News in September, Mr. Combs is shocked and disappointed by this lawsuit. Richard's testimony in Combs' ongoing trial comes 8 months after she accused the rapper in a lawsuit of subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment. The lawsuit, filed in September, obtained by E! News, stated, Mr. Combs frequently held meetings with Ms. Richard wearing only his underwear, despite Ms. Richard's protests and repeated requests for him to put on clothing. In her filing, the 41-year-old also alleged that Combs ordered her to strip down to her underwear, made demeaning remarks about her body, and entered her dressing room unannounced while she was unclothed, and touched her without her permission under the guise of showing the stylist what to do.
Certainly. Here's a rewritten version of your piece. Refined for clarity, emotional impact, and smooth narration, ideal for a YouTube documentary voiceover. The testimony that shook the courtroom. Dawn Richard speaks out. When Dawn Richard took the stand, the entire courtroom held its breath at a former member of Diddy Kane. The girl group formed under Diddy's direction. Dawn wasn't just another industry voice. She was an insider, someone who had seen the inner workings of Diddy's world up close. And when she began to speak, her testimony didn't just draw attention, it silenced the room. Most expected her to share some behind-the-scenes insight, maybe offer a few observations. But what Dawn revealed about Cassie's alleged abuse shocked everyone. It wasn't just informative, it was haunting. Her connection to both Diddy and Cassie wasn't merely professional. As part of Diddy Kane, Dawn had worked side by side with Diddy and regularly interacted with those closest to him, including Cassie, his longtime partner. From the outside, their relationship looked glamorous. But Dawn's account painted a very different picture, one that revealed what may have truly gone on behind closed doors. She described chilling moments where she allegedly witnessed Diddy erupt in rage, creating an environment so tense that those around him were constantly on edge. According to Dawn, Cassie often bore the brunt of those outbursts, emotionally, verbally, and psychologically. This wasn't hearsay. Dawn made it clear. She wasn't repeating rumors. She was speaking from experience. One moment in particular left the courtroom frozen. Dawn described a fight where Diddy allegedly screamed at Cassie with such intensity that Cassie's physical reaction betrayed the emotional toll it had taken. It wasn't just a volume of his voice. It was a manipulation, the menace behind it, and the way he allegedly twisted the situation to leave Cassie feeling powerless. IT was in that moment, Dawn said, that she realized how deeply trapped Cassie seemed to be, living under someone else's control, with no clear way out. But it wasn't just the content of Dawn's testimony that struck a chord. It was how she delivered it. Her voice, filled with both sadness and restrained anger, suggested these were words she had carried for a long time. Legal experts in the courtroom noted the significance of her statement. Firsthand, detailed accounts like this carry weight, especially when they come from someone with nothing obvious to gain. As she spoke, all eyes turned to Diddy. According to reporters, his body language shifted immediately. He looked uncomfortable, tense, even caught off guard. He leaned into his legal team, his expression darkening as if realizing how damaging Dawn's words could be. And he was right to worry, because the moment that truly struck a nerve with the jury and the public alike was when Dawn said she believed Cassie spent most of her time just trying to survive. Those 5 words hit like a hammer. They didn't just support Cassie's claims. They encapsulated them. They suggested a long-term pattern of fear, control, and emotional suffering that was impossible to ignore. Suddenly, this wasn't just about isolated incidents or celebrity gossip. It became a story of survival. That Dawn's testimony marked a major turning point in the trial. It added depth to the prosecution's case, reinforced Cassie's allegations, and posed a serious challenge to defense. It also disrupted the image Diddy had spent decades crafting. That a controlled, calculated mogul, always in charge of the narrative, be by the end of the week. Her words still lingered in the air. They weren't just courtroom statements. They were a call to look deeper, to confront what's been hidden beneath the surface of fame and power, and with more witnesses expected to come forward. People with similar proximity to Diddy and Cassie. This trial is only just beginning to reveal its full scope. What's next remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. Dawn Richards' testimony has set a powerful tone, and the ripple effects are already being felt across the industry. Stay tuned, because this is no longer just a trial. It's becoming a reckoning.
If she witnessed, and she's saying that she witnessed a gangbang, which actually we know it as called a train. And she worked on the album, The Train to Paris. And like I heard one of the YouTube, it could be Testifies, say that we didn't know what the train to Paris meant. But now we know that the train to Paris was a train in Scotland. It wasn't a train in Paris, it was a train in Scotland. Every time I have a witness doing something is when 2 guys and 2 girls will go in the room. And that was just regular. And however they did it, whatever they did, that was their business. But he'd gotten bold enough, whereas that he would do that in front of Dawn and other people at a poolside in Scotland. You sure it was Scotland, man?
Kennedy Kane alum Don Richard, who began working with Sean Diddy Combs while competing on his show Making the Band in 2004, took the stand after Cassie wrapped her testimony May 16th. Richard joined Combs' group Diddy Dirty Money after Danity Kane disbanded. While on the stand, she told jurors that she saw Combs hit Ventura with a skillet full of eggs at his Los Angeles home in 2009. Richard testified per NBC News. He came downstairs asking where his phone was, and he threw her to the ground. He attempted to kick her. She fell to the ground and went into the fetal position, literally trying to hide her head. In addition to striking Ventura with the skillet, Richard said Combs put his arm around the singer's neck and took her upstairs before she heard glass breaking. Richard added, "I was scared for her. I was scared to do anything."
Absolutely. Here is a polished and impactful rewrite of your courtroom drama narrative, refined for flow, emotional intensity, and ready to be used as a YouTube script or narration the audio tape that shook the courtroom. Cassie's voice, Diddy's downfall. The courtroom was already tense. But when a new piece of evidence was introduced, an audio recording featuring Cassie, the atmosphere changed completely. What followed was a moment that left even the jurors visibly stunned. The tape, reportedly capturing Cassie in a heated exchange with a Diddy associate, became an instant turning point in the trial. Her voice, filled with desperation and fury, echoed through the courtroom, offering a raw, unfiltered look into the emotional chaos that defined her relationship with Diddy. This wasn't just another piece of evidence. It was a window into a storm. According to reports, the recording revealed Cassie confronting someone close to Diddy, someone who allegedly had video footage of a violent altercation between her and the music mogul. Her voice trembled between anger and heartbreak as she issued threats, not from a place of calculated revenge, but from someone at her breaking point, someone cornered, afraid, and desperate to be heard. Legal experts immediately recognized the weight of the moment. One analyst said the recording wasn't just emotional, it was telling. It exposed the psychological toll of years spent in what many now believe was an abusive relationship. Cassie's threats weren't cold or calculated. They were the cries of someone in survival mode. Let's break down what the tape reportedly showed. Cassie's voice is heard addressing a man, believed to be a trusted member of Diddy's inner circle. She demands to know if he has a recording of a violent altercation. Her tone is fierce, frantic, and unrelenting, marked by someone who's been pushed to the edge. That edge, experts say, often shows up in long-term abuse survivors. It's not uncommon for people who've lived in emotionally unstable environments to lash out when they feel there's no other option. Cassie's words on the tape reflect someone who has spent years navigating manipulation, fear, and control. The courtroom wasn't just listening to a woman making threats. They were hearing someone unravel emotionally under pressure. Someone whose instinct wasn't to destroy, but to survive, and that's exactly what made the recording so powerful. This moment didn't exist in isolation. When layered with Dawn Richards' earlier testimony, where she described Diddy's alleged outbursts and Cassie's emotional suffering, it began to form a clearer, more harrowing picture of the relationship's dynamic. The jury wasn't just hearing stories now. They were hearing evidence, emotion, and impact all at once. Of course, the defense is preparing to strike back. Sources suggest Diddy's legal team will likely frame the tape as evidence of Cassie's instability. Their strategy? Paint her as erratic, emotional, and unreliable. And to do that, they may dig deeper into her past, her mental health, prior relationships, anything that could raise doubt in the jurors' minds. This tactic, while common in high-profile defense cases, is risky because the tape doesn't just show Cassie's anger, it highlights the imbalance of power. For years, Diddy was a figure in control, the mogul, the mastermind, the public persona with a polished reputation. Cassie? She was often silent, seen but rarely heard. But on that tape, her voice cut through that silence. It cracked a carefully curated image that surrounded Diddy and gave the courtroom a glimpse of what life behind the scenes may have really looked like. This wasn't just about one emotional moment. It was about a pattern, about control, fear, and the cost of being voiceless for too long. What happens next? That's the question on everyone's mind. Will the defense manage to poke holes in Cassie's credibility? Or will more recordings, more witnesses, and more emotional revelations continue to tip the scales whatever happens? One thing is clear. This is no longer just a celebrity trial. It's a story of survival, power, and reckoning. And that tape, those raw, desperate words, may have changed everything. Stay tuned.
Those are things that she's gonna have to bring up into the lawsuit, that Diddy stopped the way that she was working and how she could work by the fact that he would change, like you just said. What she would do, bro, he would turn off her mic and don't let her sing songs or don't let her do certain things, a part of the band, when he do her sexual advancements. I don't know what to say about that, brother. All I can say is that, you know, all of it sounds like using his power. He's using his power to get at people that works for him. And when you do that, when they bring you to court, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna lose if they can prove it.
One text message, Cassie writes, "I'm lost without you."
We know now that she called herself Cece for Cassie Combs. We know now that she wanted to have a child with him.
Jurors also heard an audio recording where Cassie could be heard threatening to kill a Diddy associate who had video of one of her freak-offs with Diddy.
The jurors were shocked. I saw the eyebrows raised.
Cassie was asked about receiving a FaceTime from her now husband while she was having sex with Diddy.
I think they're trying to use what they can, again, to discredit her as a witness.
When Diddy's defense team tried to shift the spotlight onto Cassie's past, their strategy seemed calculated. They brought up her time in rehab, her battle with PTSD, and even a past rape allegation, clearly aiming to discredit her. Their goal? To paint Cassie as emotionally unstable, unreliable, and ultimately untrustworthy in the eyes of the jury. But what they didn't anticipate was how this approach would backfire instead of weakening her credibility. The defense ended up revealing a deeper, more human side of Cassie, a woman shaped by trauma and possibly manipulated by someone in a position of overwhelming power. Legal analysts watching the trial closely noted a major shift. By exposing Cassie's vulnerabilities, the defense didn't disprove her story, they unintentionally validated it. Her past struggles didn't make her less believable. They made it easier to understand how someone like Diddy could allegedly exert long-term control over her. Point one of the most talked about moments came when the defense introduced private text messages between Cassie and Diddy. In one, Cassie wrote, "I'm lost without you." They used this to suggest emotional dependency and to imply that despite the rocky moments, their relationship was mutual and consensual. But experts quickly pushed back. Trauma survivors, they explained, often form deep emotional bonds with their abusers, not out of love, but because of manipulation, isolation, and psychological conditioning. That kind of attachment is common in toxic and abusive dynamics. And instead of proving the relationship was healthy, those texts only highlighted how complex and damaging it may have been behind the scenes. The defense's narrative that Cassie was too emotionally unstable to offer a reliable account didn't land the way they had hoped. Instead, it drew attention to a bigger question. Asterisk, what role did Diddy play in exacerbating those struggles? By spotlighting her history with PTSD and substance recovery, the defense unintentionally amplified the possibility that these issues were consequences, not causes, potential outcomes of living in a relationship marked by fear, control, and psychological warfare. Legal commentators were quick to point out that this tactic, digging into a survivor's past to discredit them, is not new. It's a common strategy in high-profile abuse trials. Cast doubt, spotlight inconsistencies, and shift focus on the accused or the accuser. But in this case, it seems to have only deepened sympathy for Cassie. Instead of cracking her credibility, the defense's approach made Cassie appear even more like a survivor, someone who endured years of manipulation and emotional captivity under the influence of one of the most powerful men in the industry. For the jury, this changed everything. What began as an attempt to poke holes in Cassie's testimony quickly evolved into a deeper narrative about trauma, vulnerability, and survival. The courtroom no longer saw her as just an ex-girlfriend with emotional baggage, but as a woman fighting to reclaim her story after years of silence. And this shift is already shaping the trial. The focus is no longer just on isolated events, text messages, or emotional outbursts. The bigger picture is coming into view, a pattern of behavior, a stark power imbalance, and alas, the emotional toll of a relationship that may have been far more toxic than the public ever knew. And it's not over yet. More witnesses are expected to testify, including former Diddy Kane members and others from inside Diddy's inner circle. Each new voice adds more layers to an already explosive case. Layers the defense may find harder and harder to spin in their favor and try to break Cassie down. The defense may have done something they never intended. They helped build a more complete and more compelling portrait of the truth she's been trying to tell all along.
Unfortunately, we're all going to take a disgusting trip to his seedy, awful world. You know, the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual.
The facts are the facts, the texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear.
That Ventura had a choice and that she chose to participate in those sexual encounters.
Where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about freak-off.
Aubrey O'Day is the latest name sending shockwaves through an already explosive courtroom, a former member of Diddy Kane. Aubrey is stepping forward, prepared to offer her first-hand account of what it was like to live and work under Diddy's control. What did she see? What does she know? Those are the questions gripping both the courtroom and the public as she prepares to take the stand. And it's not just her. Behind the scenes, a growing list of Diddy's former employees, people deeply embedded in his personal and professional world, are lining up to testify. Each new witness adds another layer to a story that's quickly unraveling in real time. Their presence isn't just symbolic, it's strategic. Legal experts stress that multiple voices, all pointing to the same patterns, create a narrative that becomes increasingly difficult to ignore or dismiss. Dawn Richard, another Diddy Kane alum, already rocked the courtroom. Her harrowing testimony described moments when she saw Cassie visibly shaken, allegedly after explosive confrontations with Diddy. She spoke of an atmosphere dominated by pressure and control. It was a glimpse behind the polished public image, and one that left the courtroom stunned. Now, it's Aubrey's turn, and what makes her testimony especially crucial is that she's never been afraid to speak her truth. Over the years, Aubrey has been open in interviews about the high-stress, emotionally taxing environment Diddy created. While she hasn't previously accused him of abuse, she's been clear about the manipulation and intensity behind closed doors. That candor is exactly why her words now could hold so much weight. As she corroborates Cassie and Dawn's claims, it won't just bolster the prosecution. It could cement the image of a long-standing pattern, a culture of fear and control that didn't just affect personal relationships, but spilled over into Diddy's professional life as well. That's what the prosecution is building. Asterisk, not isolated incidents, asterisk, but consistent, deeply troubling pattern of behavior. And then there are the former employees. These are the people who worked closest to Diddy, who saw the private side most never did, whether they directly witnessed abuse or were instructed to stay silent. Their testimonies to fill in the missing pieces, the moments when things allegedly turned dark behind the music, the lights, the fame. Their presence alone raises a chilling question. What do they know? And more importantly, why are they speaking now? As more people take the stand, the weight of the case grows. Legal analysts say that consistent, credible testimonies from multiple perspectives, some personal, like Cassie and Aubrey, others professional, like the staff, make it harder and harder for the defense to poke holes in the narrative. Every news story becomes a thread in a much larger tapestry, and every contradiction the defense must challenge becomes a more difficult battle. The question everyone's asking now is simple. What will Aubrey reveal? Will she describe the same manipulation Cassie has? The same volatility Dawn recounted? And will she confirm that Diddy's control extended far beyond the private sphere? If she does, it could mark yet another turning point, further solidifying the prosecution's portrayal of Diddy as a man who thrived on intimidation, control, and emotional dominance. But this trial isn't just being shaped by testimony. It's also being shaped by Diddy's own behavior in court. In the first week alone, his demeanor became a major point of discussion. He entered the courtroom projecting the same cool, powerful persona he's cultivated for decades. Seated at the defense table, he was calm, collected, even smug. But that facade didn't last long as Cassie testified, detailing moments of alleged emotional manipulation, control, and abuse. The atmosphere shifted. The courtroom grew tense. Observers noticed Diddy's body language change. He squirmed in his seat, his jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed. And when explicit text and audio recordings were introduced as evidence, that cool exterior briefly crumbled, his posture stiffened. He leaned into his lawyers, whispering furiously. To some, it was a man trying to maintain control. To others, it was a sign that the case was hitting a nerve. Then came Dawn Richards' testimony, arguably the most damaging yet. As she recounted disturbing details, Diddy's entire presence shifted. His composure cracked. His face darkened. He grew visibly agitated. Insiders described the moment as a turning point. The man who had always projected dominance now looked cornered, and that, legal experts say, does not go unnoticed by a jury to eye in high-profile trials. The defendant's image matters. The way they respond can be as impactful as the evidence itself. And every time Diddy's mask slips, every flash of anger, every whisper to his lawyers, every uncomfortable glance, it chips away at the image he spent a lifetime building. For the jury, this isn't just about one man on trial. It's about watching that man unravel that. And what makes this moment even more intense is that it's far from over. More witnesses are scheduled to testify. Aubrey O'Day, former staffers, insiders from his music empire. They all hold pieces of the puzzle. With each new voice, the pressure on Diddy escalates. Will their stories align with Cassie's? Will they expose a deeper, more troubling side of the man behind the brand? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The stakes have never been higher. This isn't just a trial. It's a reckoning. They're reckoning not just for Diddy, but for an industry that for too long ignored the signs. For victims silenced by power. For stories dismissed because of fame. This trial is more than a scandal. It's a mirror. And what it reflects could change everything. Stay informed. Support survivors. And don't look away, because this trial is far from over. And the next chapter could change everything we thought we knew